Welcome to Civic Warriors, brought to you by Witham. On this podcast, we bring the conversation to you, sharing engaging stories that motivate and build consensus in the nonprofit community. This podcast is about the innovators, the leaders on the front line of adversity, guiding lights in the nonprofit industry affecting change. And through their stories, we can all join forces to become Civic Warriors.
Hey, Warriors. Welcome to today's episode of Civic Warriors, brought to you by Witham. I'm your host, Brad Caruso, leader of Witham's not-for-profit practice. Today's guest is an organization that does so much good for individuals and their families that receive a challenging diagnosis. Alzheimer's is a disease that affects many individuals and their families, my family included. An estimated 6.2 million Americans age 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's dementia in 2021. 72% are age 75 or older. And today we have Donna McGowan, Executive Director of the Alzheimer's Association, and Stephanie Mansour, Senior Manager here at Witham in the not-for-profit space, and also board member of the Alzheimer's Association. So the organization today serves all of Rhode Island and provides education and support to those facing Alzheimer's and other dementias throughout the community, including those living with the disease, caregivers, healthcare professionals, and families. They're also committed to advocating for the needs and rights of those facing Alzheimer's disease and advancing critical research towards methods of treatment, prevention, and ultimately a cure. With that being said, Donna and Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I'll start with you, Donna. Maybe talk to us a little bit about the Alzheimer's Association and a general overview of the work you do.
So the Alzheimer's Association is the number one organization in the world for Alzheimer's disease. There are chapter offices in every single state. The larger the population, the more chapters. So Rhode Island, being tiny but mighty, has one chapter, a staff of 7, and a plethora of volunteers, because we could never do the work that we do just with staff of 7. And what we do, we have programs and services in the community. Everything we do in the community is basically free. And we have education programs for caregivers, for people with the disease, for lay people that just want to learn about the disease, and people that want to advocate against and find a cure for the disease. So programs are number one on the top priority list, as well as forums in the community, listening to the public's needs. We have approximately maybe 48 support groups around the state. Some are in person, some are virtual. So it suits, it's not one size fits all, and hopefully there is a size that fits you appropriately. And I'm very proud to say that we have a 24/7 helpline. It's a hotline for anything. If you're looking for referrals, if we're having a crisis at home with your loved one, we have licensed clinicians on the other end of the phone that act just like we do during the day in the office here. And that number is 1-800-272-3900. Again, it's a free service. It's 24/7. If you're calling from a 401 area code, during the day, you're going to get the Rhode Island chapter office. So if you have a New York area code, but you're working in Rhode Island, hence you're going to get the New York office. So I just want to give the back office number for Rhode Island. It's 401-421-0008. We're also very aggressive in the research world. And we have a wonderful public policy division where we advocate on the local, state, national level, just to mention a few of the things that we do.
That's great. And how did you personally get involved, and how long have you been there?
Well, that's very interesting. So I retired about 15 years ago, and I've been here 14. And I came in just thinking I was doing part-time consulting when I retired, and I thought I was going to fix some financial issues and reorganize it, and I just fell in love with it. And so it's become a passion. And I think when you meet my staff and our volunteers, there's so much passion and fire that we're doing it out of a labor of love, not out of labor of work. So I can't even believe that these 14 years have flown by, but they have seriously flown by.
Yeah, it's great to hear. And I'll say that about my career over here at Witham. I've been here, you think you're going to public accounting for a couple of years, and I've been here for 17. So, and it is the passion that you work for, and it's that drives you. So it's great to hear. And I'm sure everybody that you encounter can experience that, which I think is translates well. Talking about Alzheimer's dementia, why is it such a difficult disease to work with and cure?
We have an international research conference every July, and it's world renowned. And I think this year we had approximately 14,000 researchers. Most, 7,000, 8,000 were present, and then the others were jumping in virtually presenting their work. But they're studying everything. They're studying the environment. They're studying genetics. So it's a complicated disease. And we've had some exciting breaking news this year for folks that are in early stages of the disease. If you're in the early stages, there are now 2 FDA-approved drugs. They're infusion drugs. And I'm proud to say, after a long battle, or a very fierce, short battle, I should say, with Medicare is now paying for these infusions, which is wonderful because they're exceptionally expensive. But what these infusions do is they break down the plaque in the brain, which disseminates, breaks apart. So it gives that person that's in early stage a longer period of life in early stage. So they have a longer life in the first stages of the disease and a better quality of life. So this is exciting news because we haven't been able to say anything like this since the disease was discovered, right? So we're very excited.
That is exciting, yeah. And obviously it's a breakthrough. I know with any disease, any issue, it takes a long time to get something out there that's funded that helps and doesn't harm. So I think that's great news, certainly. Can you share a little bit more information about Alzheimer's itself? Like, who specifically does it affect? When does it affect them?
Absolutely.
I think it's helpful to give a little context there.
Absolutely. First of all, it's random selection. The majority of it is random selection. So it can affect anybody. No one escaped from this disease. And I think for us, it makes it easy for us now to lobby on Capitol Hill, to lobby here at our State House in Rhode Island, because we've done such a great job of awareness and promoting education about the disease itself that people now understand. People walk away and say, oh, I don't have that in my family. That's never going to happen. But now we've done such a great job of educating the public about this is just purely random selection in the majority. So anybody can succumb to this disease, first of all. So that's why we get great representation and support from both the Republicans, Democrats, Independents. And we've been campaigning red plus blue equals purple, which is the disease. So we've made great strides on all levels in the advocacy world because of that. It can strike anybody. There is a gene, the APO4 gene. It's in the minority. But if you do have that gene, then the likelihood of it being passed down is very great in the family generations. But it is in the minority. I must stress that. We think of it striking seniors, right? I think 1 in 3 seniors are predicted to come down and be stricken with Alzheimer's disease. But we have a whole population under the age of 65 that is our early stage, early onset group. And that it takes my breath away every time I meet somebody that is struggling with the disease, but is under the age of 65. I mean, I've seen as young as 49, 45 years old. And it's just, we don't know why. And it takes my breath away. That's all I can say. So are you eating the wrong foods? What do we know about the disease right now? We know that if we live heart healthy, if we eat what's good for us, the Mediterranean diet, if we exercise 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and we stay on that regimen, so we don't have to overexert ourselves, but we're incorporating at least 30 minutes of exercise into our schedule. If we do, we engage, we socialize. COVID was horrible because a lot of us were isolated, right? That was the worst thing for this disease. So we need to be socially engaged. We need to be actively engaged, either in work, in community service efforts, or hobbies. And we know that will prolong us and keep us healthier for a longer period of time. I don't know, Brad, if you want some stats, I can give you Rhode Island specific stats. Presently, there are 25,000 Rhode Islanders in the state that we know of that have Alzheimer's disease. And of those 25,000, there's 36,000 home-based unpaid caregivers doing it out of a labor of love. They're either working, managing a small family, managing an older family, and taking on the responsibility as a primary caregiver. So if you could just imagine that life, what it must be like, because as this disease progresses, it becomes a 24/7 labor of love.
Oh, without question. And I appreciate you sharing those stats and also additional information, because anybody that's been affected by it knows that it's not just the individual dealing with it, but it's also the families that, not only is it a disease that affects the mind, but it's also, you're physically helping this person, you're physically around them. I imagine there's a level of frustration sometimes on both sides. I know my grandfather was going through it. He was frustrated that he couldn't remember something, that something was going on. And there's a lot that goes into it. And the caregivers, are the ones most, significantly affected by it too. So
I think also that this disease, there's no good disease. This disease is presently, I believe, number 6 in the top 10. And along this trajectory with no cure or protocol, by 2050, it could be the number 1 killer in the top 10. But what is unique about this disease that no other disease has is that you're grieving a loss, but hasn't physically occurred. So how do you deal with that stress? How do you deal with that stress as the person migrates and progresses into the disease? It has an additional component that no other disease has.
Correct. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I'll turn it over to you, Stephanie. You've been involved, obviously, with the Alzheimer's Association. Maybe provide a little bit of background about how you got involved and why you got involved.
Sure, Brad. Thanks. So I was introduced to the Alzheimer's Association back in 2021 after my grandfather had passed away by fellow board member and a good friend of mine, Erica Alobri. So my grandfather was living with dementia for many years, and my grandmother, my mom, my uncle were taking care of him. So it was a big stressor on them. So like Donna had mentioned, it's not just, the person that's living with the disease, but also their family that's, has to take care of them. So it was definitely a lot of work for them, a lot of stress as well. So my grandfather ended up passing away in 2020, just one day before my son Callaway's first birthday. So that was definitely a sad moment for us. And then shortly after, my husband's grandmother, who was suffering from the disease, also passed away. So the timing was right for me to get involved with the board and just trying to, kind of turn that sadness around and just kind of help some other people, work towards the goal of finding a cure.
Yeah, without question. And what I love about it is, the fact that, now you were personally affected. I don't love that fact, but the fact that now, you're giving back now and helping, going through it, you have personal experience. I think it's so integral to the not-for-profit community. And I think it is what draws a lot of individuals to work with organizations and get involved, is that personal connection. And I'm really sorry to hear, about your loss. It is a very hard thing to go through, and it definitely rattles us all. But appreciate that you got involved with the organization and certainly are helping in different ways. So as a board member of the organization, what challenges do you face, and how have you kind of brought your personal expertise to the organization and experiences to help the organization?
It's definitely tough, we're a large organization, but we're also small as well, being in a small state and being a small chapter. So definitely had a lot of obstacles, from staff shortages, financial resources, having access to all the necessities that we need to run the organization, especially during COVID, and having everyone present and, in an office together. It's just ways that I've tried to, join in and help is, so last summer, Erica, who brought me into the organization, and my husband and a committee that we formed, we decided to form a golf committee, and we started the Golf to End ALZ. So our objectives was to organize this event and bring a bunch of golf enthusiasts together and a bunch of Alzheimer's supporters and create an impact for the Rhode Island chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. So we brought about a few hundred or little bit over 100 golf enthusiasts and some sponsors, and we were able to raise about $25,000 for the Rhode Island chapter. So that was just a really great experience. One of the first things I could do as a board member. And then this past summer, in August, we were able to kind of build on that achievement and have a second golf tournament. So it was a really great experience kind of to turn kind of some of the sadness and everything that comes with Alzheimer's and just kind of bring a lot of people together. One thing that you'll find, as Donna mentioned, is, being, number 6 in those top diseases is when you go and you talk to people, almost every person that you talk to when you bring up this disease is that either they've experienced it themselves, their spouse, their cousin, that they know someone that has the disease. So it's so pronounced in the community that when you're having an event, it's really easy to get people involved because so many people have been affected by it. So it's really great to kind of turn this into a fun event and just something that can really, bring awareness to the cause. So it's really, really great and a great experience.
Yeah, awesome to hear, and glad you got a successful golf outing. I think it, COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID, there's been a lot of discussion about what are successful events, and it's really what works for your organization. Like you said, it's a big community building event, so having it outside, doing something where you can get a lot of people, it's helpful. And I know a lot of our listeners here are not-for-profits and run not-for-profits, and I know it's always a common question about what do I do for an event? How do I pull that off? How do I make it successful? So appreciate you sharing that. One of the things I always like to, get out there is what are some of the, and I'll pass it over to you, Donna. What are some of the myths that you hear often, and how do you debunk those myths?
Well, I think that it's not going to happen to me. It's not in my family. We can't talk about random selection enough. It is truly, purely, almost maybe 90% random selection, right? The gene is on the minimal side. Before I get into anything else, though, I just want to say Miss Stephanie is being exceptionally humble. She was a brand new board member to the organization. The board is in rebuilding mode. So we're not trying to find ourselves, but we're trying to navigate that ship together and come together. But there's a lot of new faces, and COVID really put a dent in everything, right, with the isolation. So we're in rebuild mode. She came on as the new kid on the block, and she said, I'd like to do this golf tournament. I was like, wonderful. And she just was, she projected her numbers. I didn't have to do anything but just say, yes, you can have it on this date. And off we ran, and we tried to support her on the back end as much as we could. And she has run 2 magnificent, significant funding events. Now, everything we do in the community, I mentioned some of the stuff that we do. Everything we do in the community is free, but we have to pay for these services. So what pays for the services are funding events like Stephanie's Golf to End ALD, and of course our walks that go walk across the country every fall. There's over 600 walks across the country that are happening now as I speak. So I just want to shout out kudos big time to Stephanie, because she has done a fabulous job with the assistance of her committee and another board member, Erica Olobri, and she's got a piece of my heart. And she came on the board running, ready to go, which was amazing.
I love hearing that, and it's the true power of a CPA.
Oh, she had all the accounting sheets out, every dollar accounted for. It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, we do more than clean press and altars, so it's good. Great job, Stephanie. So I guess bringing us to current times, I heard that November is Caregivers Month.
And that's the time we set aside for caregivers to honor them.
That's great. So in your opinion, why are caregivers and families so integral to helping with this disease and those dealing with it?
Well, I think that they want to remain at home as long as they can. That's point A. Point B is to hire outside services to take care of that loved one in the house is probably not within most people's budget. Right, it can be very, very expensive. So it's not an option for a lot of our folks that are here in Rhode Island. So the family bands together. It's usually one that steps to the plate to provide that care and navigate the system, and they get back end support from others. But you know what? It is such a difficult job. It's such a labor of love. All caregiving, no matter what the disease, is a labor of love. But as I mentioned earlier, this has such a unique aspect to it because you're grieving a loss that hasn't physically occurred. So when they really forget who you are, or forget that they just ate breakfast and every 10 minutes they're asking for breakfast, just deal with that, or they're sundowning around 4:30 in the afternoon and you can't get them in a comfortable position. Their anxiety level is very high. It's just a true labor of love. And, sometimes when we do our care consultations here with folks, it's time they have to let go. They physically cannot continue to take care of that loved one because the behaviors have escalated. It's not safe to be at home. And that's such a difficult turning point in people's lives when they have to make that determination that I can't do this anymore. No matter how many family members I have, it's just not the right thing to do for the caregiver nor for the loved one. So it's a true labor of love. And my hearts go out to all caregivers, but there's a special place in my heart for folks that are taking care of folks with Alzheimer's and related dementias.
I second that. With respect to caregivers, what resources does your organization provide, and what other resources are out there? Because obviously, everybody needs help, and I think it's super important that there's a lot of different support networks that can help caregivers, especially. What resources exist?
Yeah, again, we have lots of education for caregivers. Communication strategy, behavior strategy. So you've been diagnosed, now what? That's for the loved one and family members or anybody that's associated with that person that has been diagnosed with the disease or mild cognitive impairment and wants to learn more. We have a series getting your financial affairs, legal affairs in order, because, this disease is extremely costly. And usually a lot of folks end up in a skilled facility, which is exceptionally expensive. And the family has worked their whole life for their modest little Cape house. And, it could be gone in a flash. We see that. So we do a lot of financial training as well as legal training to make sure that their legal and financial affairs are in order, and so they can move forward and hopefully hold on to their little nest egg as they progress into the disease. We have a 24/7 helpline, as I've stated, and the caregiver or anyone can call that number at any time with any issue, whether it be referral resources or whether you're, trying to, calm somebody down that has the disease and you're just at your wit's end. You don't know what to do. We will walk you through what you need to do at that particular moment in time. So that tool is wonderful. We locally have a plethora of support groups, as I mentioned, on the phone, by Zoom, or in person. It's not one size fits all, so you get to select. But we also have a nationwide support group where it's done online, and you can just register for it. You can sit back and be quiet in your pajamas at 3 a.m. It's whenever it's convenient for you. It is a 24/7 support group. And again, licensed clinicians are on the other end trolling to make sure that it's working the way it needs to work. But it's a wonderful vehicle for those folks that don't want to get out of the house or can't get out of the house, where they're not like social beings, but they want the assistance. So those are a few of the things we do. We're just so big. We have a Caregivers Journey Conference, Brad. That's every April at the Crown Plaza. And, we're at standing room only now. We took a hit during COVID. Of course, we had to do it on Zoom, and we're rebuilding. But prior to COVID, it was standing room only. And I would project this April, when we have it again during April School Vacation Week, it's going to be almost sold out, if not sold out. And it's an all-day event. It's free. And it's breakfast and lunch served. We have a couple of keynote address speakers, and then you break out into classrooms. And you pick the classes of your choice, and that's what you go to. We usually close the program with something fun, chair yoga, some kind of musical stuff that's very exciting for both the person with the disease as well as other folks just attending off the street. You don't have to have the disease to come to this. You don't have to be a caregiver. It's called the Caregiver's Journey. Anybody can walk in off the street, but I suggest that once our booklets hit the website and hit the street, which would be probably in February, that you register as soon as possible, because it is free and it does sell out.
Yeah, and I imagine it's a big relief that it's back in person.
Everything for me is a big relief that it's back in person. I mean, we just got off of our Providence walk, which we have 5 walks in Rhode Island in the fall, and Providence was amazing. We're not where we should be, but we had 2,000 people last weekend, and it was amazing. And I was just so good to be out there and without rain. It was the only one of the 5 walks that we didn't have to go through rain and wind. But it was just so great to be in Providence and see that many people come together. I think when you're struggling and dealing with this disease, it tends to make you isolate yourself. And it's like you're in it by yourself, or your family's in this battle alone. And when you come to our walks, we do a 15-minute flower ceremony. And the flowers are the different colors. There's one color if you're a caregiver, one if you have the disease, one if you're an advocate, etc. And one if we're hoping for that first survivor. And that's usually held by a younger child at the end, a white flower. But when you see those flowers, they're pinwheel flowers. And when you see them go up, and I have the pleasure of looking out because I'm always at the stage area. It's incredibly amazing because this whole sea of color comes together. But you look to your left and you look to your right, and at that point in time, you know you're not alone in this battle. There's lots of other people just like you, right? And they're in it to win it. They're in it to slay the disease, which I predict that we're going to do. I really predict we're getting very close to have a protocol to extend out good quality of life. So these are exciting times. We're in the era of treatment right now.
Love it. And on that topic, what is the future of addressing this disease as a whole, or what research is out there being conducted that's supporting that?
Oh my God, there's so much research. There's a couple of studies right here in Rhode Island going on right now. U.S. pointer study, it's here, run out of Butler Hospital, and it's looking at non-pharmacological. It's exercise and diet and nutrition, right? So there's significant, wonderful results coming from the U.S. pointer study, which is a national study. There are 5 sites in the country that are conducting it, and Rhode Island has been selected as one of those sites. So that's very, very exciting. But there's blood biomarkers, as simplistic as going into your GP at some point and taking a blood test, and the blood test can determine whether or not you've got Alzheimer's in the blood. So the research is hot. There's a ton of it, and we're determined to get rid of this disease. So, and like I said, we do have Aduhelm and Leqembi right now, those 2 drugs that have been approved just recently by the FDA and Medicare. So we have those infusions. So the key to this is early detection, getting a diagnosis. It's not a bad thing. If you're forgetting, you're putting your keys in the oven, that doesn't necessarily mean you have dementia or Alzheimer's disease. It could be that you're trying to process too many things at one time. You run into the bedroom, put the light on, and you say to yourself, what am I doing here? It doesn't have to be dementia. But if you're having difficulty managing a checkbook, right, or remembering to trace your steps, or you're in your car driving and you get lost and you're going around the block, okay? Those are things that we need to key into. Those are things we need to report to our general practitioner. Because the earlier you get diagnosed, we now have treatment options, but you have to be treated in early onset. So you can't take these drugs if you're in the middle stage. They don't work. They work for folks that are in the early stages of the disease.
Yeah, so just based on those facts, I think it's great to hear the progress, and it's great to hear the work that you're doing, as well as the work that the research fields are doing to solve this. But being alert, because as you mentioned multiple times, and it's important to keep repeating it, it's random, could affect anyone in anywhere, anytime, probably later on, mid of your life. It's good to be aware and to talk about these things with your general practitioner, with your doctor that you see, and identify it. It's good, as you mentioned, the treatments are an early stage, so the earlier you identify it, obviously, the better. And as our treatments and our pharmaceutical industry puts out certain medication or drugs that can assist with it, obviously it's better, as you mentioned, early on. It's better. The sooner that you can identify it, the better, and increase the quality of life and longevity of life. So important. I appreciate you bringing that up. And I like that we reinforce these topics and reinforce the concepts, because not everybody is aware. I know before this conversation, I can promise you I wasn't aware of that. I felt that it just one day it just happens and you don't know it.
I mean, a lot of times there are misdiagnoses in the 50s. It could be depression, change of life. I've come across lots of folks that have been misdiagnosed. And then when they find out things started progressing, they got to the right group that they needed to be in, and the diagnosis was spot on. So, I can't reinforce that. If things are going awry, it's okay to bring it to your GP's attention and take a mini cog evaluation, right? It's okay. Like I said, right now we are all about awareness. So the sooner you're aware, the better we can deal with this together.
Yeah, without a doubt. And on that topic, obviously, the work your organization does, the work that the Alzheimer's Association as a whole across the country does. How can the public help you and participate in your activities, and And you mentioned this multiple times, but once again, I like continuing to share this information. How does someone find more information?
So again, they can call that
help?
800 number, 1-800-272-3900. During the day, they'll get us here, or some of our staff here. Some of us are out in the community, of course, but they'll get the message through us during the day. They can call after hours and leave a message. And they leave a message with, I say, those licensed clinicians. We'll get a report in the morning, and whoever we have to follow up with, we will. So it's a wonderful system. The other way is you can just go to our website if you're inclined to go to the website. A lot of people don't want to go to the website. They have difficulty. We will help you navigate it. You just, again, need to call us and we'll navigate with you. But the website is www.alz.org/RI. And so we need volunteers. We need lots of volunteers. We're looking right now, the board has been charged to go out and nominate new additional board members. So we're in recruiting mode right now for board of directors. We need corporations and small businesses. We need them to be involved and engaged, whether they form a team at one of the walks. Providence is the largest walk we have. So honestly, if you're not there and you're not advertising at that walk, you're missing an opportunity, because it's a very, very large walk. But we have walks on Block Island. We have walks in Westerly. We have a walk in Newport. And our recently new walk we just put on this past fall is in North Situate on the town common. And that was amazing. Again, amazing. Almost 300 people came out in the rain, and it was brandy new. So you need to get involved. My vision is to love to see companies, Witham, CVS, having their own T-shirts and their own color at the walk, and organizing that way. And then having maybe CPA firms competing against each other for who can, raise the most funds at the walk. Or as Stephanie came on board, she said, I want to do a golf tournament. Can I do it? And we said, absolutely. And she made it happen. And she made it seem seamless. And I know how much work goes into it, because we used to do golf tournaments. And, they started withering away. People got older. They lost interest. Pricing was too expensive, you name it. So, and then this ray of hope came through the doors, and she resurrected it, and she was fabulous. So we need volunteers. We can't do this work alone. We always say we're staff supported, volunteer driven. And that's what we need to get rid of this, eradicate this disease, because it is so large. We could never hire and pay salary and benefits to all the people that we needed to help us get rid of this disease. It's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, and it's great that you shared the stats on the events and the participation. I think any corporate sponsor here's 2,000 people are crossing there, and local community too. I think a lot of corporations are very much in tune to giving in the communities they serve. And I know our firm especially, we've been about that for the last 50 years, but very specifically, I'm sure a lot of other organizations have that mindset. So, and I just have one final question I have to ask. Stephanie, what's your key to success here for the golf outing? Because I'm sure a lot of people are wondering.
Well, I think this year we changed locations. We had a beautiful country club on the water, and we had some great sponsors. Witham was a sponsor, and we had some great sponsors, some great events, and some fun activities on the golf course. So, you just got to ask. I'd say that's the key thing. It doesn't hurt to ask. And with Alzheimer's, there's just so many people affected by the disease that almost, I'd say 80% of the people that I mentioned it to had some sort of connection to it. And as soon as I mentioned it, that they were more than happy to make a donation, to sponsor, to play in the tournament. We had a wait list. People that just wanted to play at the tournament this year. So we are already gearing up to start year 3. So stay tuned.
It's impressive that you had a wait list, because it's hard to fill a golf course. It's not easy. And to your point, you have to ask. I did a fundraiser last year, and I realized in doing that how many people were affected by the disease we were fundraising for, and how and you would never know. And if you never asked, you would never know. And if you ask and someone says no, that's fine. Not everybody, everyone's affected by something different. And it's definitely an exercise in just ask. And this is our pitch. This is what we do, and it works out well. But this was a great conversation. I really appreciate the information, and I'm sure our listeners, there's a lot more information, as mentioned by Donna and Stephanie on the website. check it out. I think it's important to learn more about the disease, learn more about what the organization does to support you, have more factual information about what's going on with it. Donna and Stephanie, thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And warriors out there, thank you for listening. Appreciate your time. And as you heard multiple times on the episode today, certain diseases affect many people and their families and could be random. It may affect you any day, any time in the future, and you don't know when it's going to happen. And so, that's why the work of the Alzheimer's Association is so critical. They certainly work tirelessly to raise funds, to provide for research, to conduct advocacy, to help find breakthrough drugs to help the disease, and ultimately help the families that are in need and the individuals going through a very, very difficult time. So thanks for listening today. Subscribe and meet us right back here for another episode of With Them Civic Warriors. Thanks, everybody.